Hey everyone! Before we dive into today's incredible story, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been taken for granted by your own family? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you love real-life stories about standing up for yourself. Now, let's get into this amazing tale from Dorothy. In Charleston, my name is Dorothy Chen, and at 72 years old, I thought I would seen every kind of heartbreak life could serve up. After watching my beloved husband Frank battle Parkinson's disease for 3 grueling years before losing him, I figured the worst was behind me. That was before I discovered that sometimes the deepest wounds come from the people you love most. When Frank passed away 18 months ago, I was lost in a fog of grief that seemed to have no end. Our little ranch house in Albany felt enormous and hollow, without his gentle humming in the kitchen, or his reading glasses left on every surface. The silence was deafening. That is when my son Michael called from Charleston, suggesting I come stay with his family for a while. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone right now," he said, his voice carrying that worried tone I remembered from when he was 12 and afraid of thunderstorms. "Come live with us. The kids would love having Grandma around, and Jessica could use the help with the baby Jessica, my daughter, in-law of 8 years, a woman who smiled with her mouth but never quite with her eyes when she looked at me. Still, I packed my most cherished belongings into boxes, sold the house that held 43 years of memories, and drove my old Honda Accord down Highway 82 toward what I hoped would be a new chapter filled with family warmth. The house in Charleston's historic district was beautiful, a restored antebellum home with wraparound porches and ancient live oak trees draped with Spanish moss like nature's own curtains. Michael had done well for himself as a software engineer, and Jessica worked part-time as a dental hygienist. They had 3 children: Emma, who was 8 and still believed in magic; 6-year-old Tyler, who collected rocks and asked endless questions about everything; and baby Sarah, barely 10 months old with Frank's same curious brown eyes. I moved into what they called the guest suite, really just a converted sunroom with thin walls and a bathroom that shared plumbing with the laundry room. But I was grateful. I told myself this was temporary, just until I found my footing again. I never imagined I would still be there over a year later, or that I would end up feeling like an intruder in what had become my own home. From the beginning, I tried to make myself useful. I would always been a morning person, so I would wake before dawn to start breakfast for everyone. Pancakes shaped like animals for the kids, strong coffee for Michael, and herbal tea for Jessica, who claimed caffeine made her anxious. I would pack lunchboxes, help with homework, and watch the baby while Jessica ran errands or met friends for yoga classes. I also quietly began handling household expenses. My teacher's pension from 38 years in the Georgia public school system wasn't enormous, but it was steady. When I saw Michael stress about the mortgage payment or Jessica worry over daycare costs, I opened a joint checking account and started transferring money monthly. $1,500 for groceries and utilities, $800 for Emma's gymnastics lessons and Tyler's soccer registration, $600 for baby Sarah's daycare 3 days a week, another $1,000 for various household needs, new tires for Jessica's SUV, repairs on the old HVAC system, unexpected medical copays when Tyler broke his wrist. I never made a big production of it. I would just quietly hand Michael my debit card when bills came due, or I would stop by the grocery store myself and stock their pantry with everything from organic baby food to the fancy coffee creamer Jessica preferred. I figured that is what families do. You help where you can, when you can, without keeping score. For the first several months, everything seemed peaceful. The children adored having me around. Emma would curl up in my lap after school to tell me about her day, and Tyler would drag me outside to examine every interesting bug or unusual leaf he would discovered. Baby Sarah would giggle and reach for me whenever I entered a room, and I would spend hours rocking her to sleep while humming the same lullabies I would once sung to Michael. Michael seemed genuinely happy to have me there too. He would tell me stories about work over dinner. ask my advice about the kids, and sometimes we would stay up late, watching old movies together, like we used to do when he was in high school. Those moments felt like a gift, a chance to rebuild our relationship as adults instead of just parent and child. But Jessica's attitude began shifting in small, almost imperceptible ways. At first, it was just little comments wrapped in concern. "Dorothy, you left the porch light on again last night. We are trying to keep the electric bill manageable." Or, "I noticed you used the good towels from the hall closet. Those are really meant for when we have company." I would apologize and try to be more mindful, but the comments kept coming. Soon she was posting little notes around the house, reminders about turning off lights, instructions for operating the washing machine correctly, suggestions about where I should and shouldn't park my car in their driveway. Each note was written in cheerful handwriting with smiley faces and exclamation points. But they stung nonetheless. Then came the day she reorganized the kitchen and gave me a specific cabinet for my things. A narrow space next to the broom closet where I could keep my calcium supplements, my special herbal teas, and the sugar-free cookies I would started buying for my diabetic maintenance diet. My contributions to their pantry remained, of course, but now they were mixed in with everything else, while my personal items were segregated, like I was a boarder rather than family. The real shift happened around month 10 of my stay. I was folding laundry in the living room, something I would been doing to help out, when I overheard Jessica on the phone with her sister. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the kitchen and living room shared an open floor plan, and voices carried easily. "She is just always here," Jessica was saying, her voice low but clearly frustrated. "I cannot even make coffee in the morning without her already bustling around the kitchen like she owns the place. And she has opinions about everything: how I feed the baby, what time the kids should go to bed, whether Tyler's eating enough vegetables." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. I would been trying so hard to be helpful, but apparently my efforts were being perceived as interference. "I know she helps with expenses," Jessica continued, "but honestly, we were managing fine before she moved in. Michael got that promotion last spring, and my hours increased. We don't need her money anymore, but now she acts like we owe her something." That stopped me cold. We were managing fine. I would been covering nearly a third of their monthly expenses for over a year. Their savings account had grown significantly since I would started contributing, and they would been able to afford family vacations and home improvements that would have been impossible otherwise. But apparently, Jessica had rewritten that history in her mind. I quietly finished folding the clothes and retreated to my room, my heart heavy with the realization that my place in this family wasn't as secure as I would believed. The situation deteriorated rapidly after that. Jessica began making pointed comments about my extended visit, and how the guest room was really needed for other purposes. She started planning family activities without including me, making dinner reservations for 4 instead of 5, and booking vacation rentals with exactly enough beds for their nuclear family. "We thought you might enjoy some quiet time to yourself," she would say sweetly when I asked about a weekend trip to Folly Beach or tickets to Emma's school play that everyone else was attending. The children sensed the tension too. Emma started asking why Grandma couldn't come to the movies with them, and Tyler would look confused when Jessica would shush him for talking too loudly because Grandma needs her rest. They were being subtly trained to see me as fragile and separate, rather than as part of their family unit. The breaking point came on a humid Tuesday morning in July. I would woken early as usual, and was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Jessica stormed in, still in her pajamas, her face flushed with anger. "Did you use the last of the coffee creamer?" she demanded, holding up an empty container. "I had a little in my tea," I said quietly. "I am sorry. I thought there was another container in the refrigerator." "There isn't," she snapped. "And this is exactly what I am talking about. You act like everything in this house belongs to you. You eat our food. You use our utilities. You take up our space. And you don't seem to understand that you are just living off our charity at this point." The words hit me like a physical blow. Charity, after all the money I would quietly contributed, all the childcare I would provided, all the meals I would cooked, and clothes I would washed and homework I would supervised. She saw my presence as charity. Jessica, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I think there has been a misunderstanding about my contribution to this household. Oh, please, she rolled her eyes. Your little pension checks don't cover what it costs to support another person. The grocery bills alone have doubled since you moved in. And don't get me started on the utility costs, from your constant need for extra heating and cooling. I stood there in their granite countertop kitchen, surrounded by groceries I would purchased and appliances I would helped repair, being lectured about my burden on their finances. The irony was so profound I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I simply nodded and said, I understand. I will make sure to buy my own coffee creamer from now on. But Jessica wasn't finished. Honestly, Dorothy, I think it is time we talked about your long-term plans. This arrangement was supposed to be temporary while you got back on your feet after Frank's death. But it has been over a year now, and you seem perfectly comfortable just staying forever. Michael walked into the kitchen at that moment, his hair still messy from sleep, clearly sensing the tension. What is going on? He asked, looking between his wife and his mother. I was just explaining to your mother that she needs to start thinking about her own place, Jessica said, her voice suddenly bright and reasonable. She is better now, aren't you, Dorothy? Ready to be independent again? Michael looked uncomfortable, caught between the two women in his life. Mom, we have talked about this. You know you are welcome here as long as you need to be. But she doesn't need to be, Jessica interrupted. She is perfectly capable of living on her own. And frankly, we need our space back. The kids need consistency, and I need to feel like I am the woman of my own house. That last sentence hung in the air like a challenge. I looked at my son, waiting for him to defend me, to remind his wife that I was his mother, and deserved basic respect in what had become my home too. But Michael just ran his hand through his hair and sighed. Maybe we should all just take a breath and talk about this when everyone's had their coffee, he said weakly. It was in that moment I realized he wasn't going to stand up for me. His loyalty lay with the woman he slept next to every night, not the woman who would raised him and was currently funding a significant portion of their lifestyle. I was outnumbered and outvoted in a house where I would thought I belonged. You are absolutely right, Jessica, I said quietly. I should start making plans. That afternoon, while everyone was out, Michael at work, Jessica at the gym, and the kids at summer camp, I sat at their dining room table with my banking documents spread out before me. I would been so focused on trying to be a helpful, unobtrusive houseguest that I would never clearly explained the financial arrangement to them. They genuinely seemed to believe they were doing me a favor by letting me live there. I pulled out my phone and called my bank. I need to make some changes to my automatic transfers. I told the customer service representative, I want to stop all recurring payments from my checking account to an external account. Certainly, Mrs. Chen. Are you sure you want to cancel all of them? I show regular transfers totaling $2,800. Per month, $2,800. That was nearly $1,000 more than I would been mentally calculating. Over the past year, I would been quietly covering their mortgage payment difference when Michael's commission checks were low, paying for home improvements they would wanted, and handling unexpected expenses like car repairs and medical bills. No wonder their savings account had been growing, while mine had been steadily shrinking. Yes, I said firmly, cancel all automatic transfers immediately. Next, I called my financial advisor, a sharp woman named Patricia, who had been helping me manage Frank's life insurance payout and my retirement investments. I need to make a withdrawal, I told her. I am moving out of my current living situation and need to secure my own housing. Of course, Dorothy. How much are we talking about? Enough for a down payment on a small house or a year's rent on a nice apartment. I want to be completely financially independent. Wise decision, Patricia said, and something in her tone suggested she understood more about my situation than I would explicitly shared. I will have the funds transferred to your checking account by tomorrow morning. That evening, I cooked dinner as usual, baked chicken with vegetables from the garden I would help plant and maintain. The family gathered around the table, and the conversation was stilted. Everyone still feeling the tension from the morning's confrontation. After the kids were in bed, Michael approached me in the living room where I was reading. "Mom, about this morning, Jessica gets stressed sometimes, and she says things she doesn't mean." I looked up at my son. This man I would raise to be kind and honest, who was now making excuses for his wife's cruelty. "Did she seem like she didn't mean it?" He was quiet for a moment. "She is protective of our family dynamic. It is nothing personal against you." "Nothing personal," I repeated. "Michael, do you know how much money I have contributed to this household over the past year?" He looked uncomfortable. "I know you help with groceries and stuff." "We appreciate it." $2,800 a month, I said quietly. +1. Time expenses like car repairs and medical bills and home improvements. Over the past year, I have probably contributed close to $40,000 to your family's expenses. His eyes widened. "Mom, I had no idea it was that much. I thought maybe you were helping with a few hundred here and there." "I never wanted to make a big deal about it," I said. "I thought that is what family did for each other. But apparently, Jessica sees my contributions as insignificant and my presence as charity." Michael sat down heavily in his recliner. "She doesn't understand. I will talk to her." But I was already shaking my head. "No, sweetheart. She has made her feelings clear. And you know what? Maybe she is right. Maybe I do need to reclaim my independence." The next morning, I woke early and made breakfast for the children one last time. Chocolate chip pancakes for Emma, scrambled eggs shaped like a smiley face for Tyler, and warm oatmeal with mashed bananas for baby Sarah. I packed their lunch boxes with extra love, including hand-written notes in each one, telling them how proud I was of them and how much Grandma loved them. When Jessica came downstairs, she found me loading my suitcases into my Honda Accord. "Going somewhere?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "I took your advice," I said. "I am moving into my own place. I found a lovely apartment downtown near the historic district. I will be much more independent there." For just a moment, something that might have been regret flickered across her face. "Oh, when?" "Today," I said. "I have already arranged for movers to get my furniture tomorrow. The children's school has my new address and phone number for emergencies." Michael emerged from the house with Tyler in his arms and Emma trailing behind, both kids still in their pajamas. "Grandma, where are you going?" Emma asked, her voice small and worried. I knelt down to her level, my heart breaking. "Grandma is moving to her own house, sweetheart. But I will still see you all the time, and you can come visit me whenever you want." "But why?" Tyler demanded. "Don't you like living with us anymore?" Before I could answer, Jessica appeared behind them. "Grandma needs her own space to be happy," she said smoothly. "She is going to love having her own place to decorate, however she wants." I hugged each child tightly, whispering promises that I would still be part of their lives, that geography wouldn't change how much I loved them. Michael looked stricken, clearly wanting to say something but not knowing what. "Mom, are you sure about this?" "We can work things out." I smiled at him sadly. "This is for the best, honey. You have my new address. We will talk soon." As I drove away from the antebellum house with its wraparound porches and Spanish moss, I felt a strange mixture of grief and relief. I was leaving behind daily access to my grandchildren's laughter and spontaneous hugs, but I was also reclaiming my dignity and my sense of self-worth. My new apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted historic building downtown. It had high ceilings, original hardwood floors, and windows that looked out over Marion Square. It was smaller than what I would been used to, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every choice about how to spend my day was entirely under my control. I didn't hear from Michael or Jessica for 3 days. Then, on Friday afternoon, my phone started ringing. The first call was from Michael. "Mom, Something's wrong with our bank account. The automatic payments for the mortgage and utilities didn't go through, and the bank says insufficient funds. I let the call go to voicemail. The second call came an hour later. This time from Jessica. Dorothy, we need to talk. There seems to be some kind of banking error. Our account isn't showing the deposits it should have. I turned off my phone and made myself a cup of tea. Over the weekend, the calls became increasingly frantic. By Monday, my voicemail box was full. Messages from Michael asking me to call back urgently. Messages from Jessica demanding explanations. Even a message from their bank asking me to contact them about irregular account activity. On Tuesday morning, I finally called Michael back. Mom, thank God. We have been trying to reach you for days. Something's wrong with our finances. The mortgage payment bounced, and the electric company is threatening to shut off service. There is nothing wrong with your finances. Sweetheart, I said calmly. You just don't have access to mine anymore. There was a long silence. What do you mean? I stopped the automatic transfers from my account to yours. Jessica was right. You don't need my charity anymore. You are perfectly capable of managing your own expenses. But Mom, we didn't realize. We never asked you to. You didn't ask me to leave either. But here we are, another silence. Then, can we talk about this in person, of course? You are welcome to visit me anytime. My address is 67 King Street, apartment 3B. I hung up before he could respond. They showed up at my door that evening, Michael, Jessica, and all 3 children. Emma immediately ran to me for a hug, and Tyler began exploring my new apartment with the enthusiasm of a born explorer. Baby Sarah reached for me from Jessica's arms, and I took her gladly, breathing in her familiar baby smell. This is a nice place, Mom, Michael said, looking around appreciatively. Really nice. Jessica remained silent, her eyes taking in the elegant furnishings I would selected, the art I would hung on the walls, the fresh flowers I would arranged on the dining table. This wasn't the humble accommodations of someone living on charity. This was the home of a woman with her own resources and her own refined taste. Kids, why don't you explore the balcony? I suggested. There is a nice view of the park. Once they were out of earshot, Michael cleared his throat. Mom, we need to talk about the money situation. We had no idea you were contributing so much to our household. If we had understood, you would have what? I asked. Treated me with more respect? Made me feel more welcome? Or just felt guilty about taking advantage of me? Jessica finally spoke up. We weren't taking advantage. We thought you wanted to help. We thought it made you feel useful. I studied her face, looking for genuine remorse, but seeing mainly embarrassment and frustration. Jessica, you told me I was living off your charity. You made me feel like a burden in your home, and when I tried to explain my contributions, you dismissed them as insignificant. I was having a bad morning, she said defensively. I didn't mean it the way it sounded, but you did mean it when you said I needed to make my own plans. When you said you needed me out of your house, she didn't answer. Which was answer enough. Michael looked desperate. Mom, we cannot afford the mortgage without your help. I got another commission cut at work, and Jessica's hours were reduced. We have been living beyond our means without realizing it. That is exactly the problem, I said gently. You have been living beyond your means by relying on my means. And I let you do it because I wanted to feel needed and wanted. But I don't want to be needed just for my bank account. It is not just about money, Michael protested. We want you in our lives. The kids miss you terribly. And I miss them, I said, my voice softening as I looked at Emma coloring at my dining table and Tyler investigating my bookshelf. But I will not go back to being treated like an unwelcome guest who should be grateful for the privilege of spending my own money on your family. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. What would it take for you to consider moving back? I thought carefully before answering. Respect. A genuine apology, not because you need my financial help, but because you recognize that you treated me poorly. Clear boundaries about my role in the household and my relationship with the children, and acknowledgement that if I choose to contribute financially, it is a gift, not an obligation. Done, Michael said quickly. But Jessica looked less certain. What kind of boundaries? I am not your built-in babysitter or housekeeper, I said. I am a grandmother who enjoys spending time with her grandchildren and helping her family when needed. But I also have my own life and my own interests. I will not be anyone's charity case, and I will not be anyone's taken for granted source of free labor and money. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said, I owe you an apology. I was stressed and worried about money, and I took it out on you. It wasn't fair, it wasn't the most heartfelt apology I would ever received. But it was a start. I appreciate that, I said, but I think some time apart has been good for all of us. I am happy here, and you are learning to manage your own household. Maybe we can rebuild our relationship gradually. Over the following weeks, we established a new routine. Michael would bring the children to visit me twice a week, and I would take them for weekend outings to the zoo or children's museum. I would invite the whole family for dinner at my apartment once a month, and they would reciprocate by having me over for special occasions. I resumed contributing to their household expenses, but on my own terms, and in my own way. I would pay for Emma's gymnastics lessons directly rather than transferring money to their account. I would take Tyler school shopping rather than giving them cash for his clothes. I would stock their pantry during my visits rather than handling their grocery budget. The children adapted to the new arrangement with remarkable resilience. Emma loved having sleepovers at Grandma's fancy apartment, and Tyler enjoyed the adventure of riding the city bus downtown to visit me. Baby Sarah seemed to understand that the love remained constant, even if the living arrangements had changed. Jessica and I maintained a cordial, but somewhat distant relationship. She was polite during family gatherings and thanked me appropriately for my help with the children. But we never developed the warm mother-daughter bond I would once hoped for, and that was okay. I would learn that not all relationships need to be intimate to be functional. Michael, on the other hand, seemed to understand what had really happened. He made more effort to include me in important decisions about the children's schooling and activities. He called me regularly just to chat, not because he needed something, and he began contributing more to our relationship rather than always being the recipient of my efforts. 6 months after I moved out, Jessica lost her job when the dental practice where she worked closed unexpectedly. Michael's income alone wasn't enough to cover their mortgage, car payments, and other expenses. They were facing foreclosure within 60 days. Michael called me, his voice heavy with shame and worry. Mom, I hate to ask this, but we are in real trouble. We need help, and I don't know where else to turn. Tell me what is happening, I said, and listened as he explained their financial crisis. How much do you need? I asked when he finished. I don't know. Maybe $20,000 to catch up on everything and give us time to figure out a long-term solution. I will transfer $15,000 to your account tomorrow, I said, and I will cover Emma's and Tyler's school expenses for the rest of the year. Mom, I cannot accept that much money without some kind of repayment plan. It is not a loan, I interrupted. It is a gift. But Michael, this is the last time I bail you out of a financial crisis. You and Jessica need to create a sustainable budget based on what you actually earn, not what you hope to earn or what you think I should contribute. We will, he promised. And Mom, thank you, not just for the money, but for teaching us this lesson the way you did. We needed to understand what we were taking for granted. That conversation marked a turning point in our relationship. Michael and Jessica downsized to a smaller house they could afford on his income alone. Jessica found a new job with a more stable practice. They sold the luxury SUV and bought a used minivan. They canceled expensive activities and found free alternatives for family entertainment. And they began to appreciate, rather than expect, my contributions to their lives. The children flourished under the new arrangement. Emma discovered she was just as happy playing soccer at the community center as she would been in expensive private leagues. Tyler found that library programs were just as engaging as costly enrichment classes. and baby Sarah continued to be her sunny, adaptable self regardless of her surroundings. As for me, I would found something I hadn't realized I would lost. My sense of self-worth that wasn't tied to how much I could give to others. I joined a book club at the local library and made friends with women who enjoyed my company for its own sake. I took up watercolor painting and discovered I had a talent for capturing the historic architecture and garden squares that surrounded my new home. I volunteered at a literacy program for adult learners and found deep satisfaction in helping people achieve their educational goals. Most importantly, I learned that independence at 72 wasn't just possible, it was liberating. I would spend so many years defining myself in relation to other people. Wife, mother, caregiver, provider. Living alone for the first time in my adult life, I rediscovered who Dorothy Chen was when she wasn't busy being everything to everyone. I still missed the daily chaos of life with grandchildren. I missed spontaneous conversations with Michael over morning coffee. I even missed some aspects of the domestic routine I would maintain in their household. But I didn't miss feeling invisible, unappreciated, or taken for granted. My story isn't unique. I have met other women in similar situations, mothers and grandmothers who gave so much of themselves that they lost themselves in the process. Women who financed their children's lifestyles while being treated as burdens rather than blessings. Women who had to leave in order to be seen, who had to stop giving in order to be valued. To those women, I want to say this: you are not selfish for having boundaries, you are not cruel for expecting respect, and you are not wrong for valuing yourself enough to walk away from people who don't value you, even when those people are your own family. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone else's irresponsibility or disrespect. Sometimes teaching people to appreciate you requires showing them what life looks like without you. And sometimes, the relationship that emerges from that difficult lesson is stronger and more honest than what came before. My relationship with my family isn't perfect now, but it is real. It is based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. It is built on genuine appreciation rather than dutiful obligation, and it allows me to be a whole person, Dorothy the grandmother, but also Dorothy the individual with her own dreams, interests, and dignity. The other day, Emma called me from her mother's phone to invite me to her school's spring concert. "Grandma, I have a solo in the choir. Can you come hear me sing?" "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I told her. And as I marked the date on my calendar in my apartment, for an event I would attend as an honored guest rather than an assumed presence, I smiled. This was what family should feel like: chosen, cherished, and freely given from both sides. Jessica and I may never be close friends, but we have found a way to coexist respectfully for the sake of the children we both love. Michael has grown into a man who understands that love isn't just about receiving, it is about reciprocating, appreciating, and protecting the people who matter to you. And I have become a woman who knows her own worth, who sets her own boundaries, and who gives from a place of strength rather than need. It took 72 years and a painful lesson in family dynamics, but I finally learned that the most important relationship I have is the one with myself. Because when you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you. When you value yourself, you attract people who value you too. And when you love yourself enough to walk away from disrespect, you create space for relationships based on genuine care rather than convenient exploitation. That is the lesson I hope my grandchildren will remember about their grandmother Dorothy. Not that she was the woman who paid their bills or cooked their meals, but that she was the woman who knew when enough was enough, who had the courage to demand better, and who showed them that self-respect isn't selfish, it is essential. What do you think about Dorothy's decision? Was she right to cut off financial support and move out? Or should she have tried harder to work things out while staying in the house? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping peace and keeping your dignity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story about standing up for yourself, no matter what your age, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more real, life tales of courage, family drama, and finding your voice when it matters most. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. And remember, it is never too late to choose yourself.